afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another Propagandacaster Addendum with me, your host, Imperial Dane, talking about another, potential future Coh3 thing to happen again. There's a lot of talk about it, in essence, they sent out a lot of surveys. So again, I'm doing these videos because there's something to talk about, something a bit more constructive, rather than going, this is bad, this is bad, this is really bad. So again, to sort of have another of those topics, I sort of want to talk about, we all did a video, I did a video, obviously, on, they really should be careful about doing a Wunderwaffen, just use these huge, blusterous piece of junk that just never tend to work out very well because they're incredibly difficult to design due to the way they're sort of overall, balanced due to the way they're designed in the actual one, the sort of impact they sort of have, and, the actual impact you sort of imagine players to want them to have, so that causes problems there. So that's not to say they can't add in, cool stuff, but they have to be sort of more careful in how they do it, and one of the things they could try and do is just add in, just a lot of sort of more, common equipment that sort of actually saw some usage, just some slightly more obscure variations of it, but, still sort of fell in with, sort of, pretty standard roles. Rather than just having to go for the most exclusive things every time, and just, highly rarely built stuff, rather than just in some cases, just, the workhorses, the bread and butter. Like, for example, instead of insisting on every single time going for an Austrian flak panzer, how about the flak panzer 38T, which at least were built in larger numbers, is just going for more standard flak half tracks, or just tracks with flaks on them. Like, there's a lot of just sort of smaller things that could be done instead of just having to go for like obscure prototypes. And I'm not even saying they shouldn't occasionally go for that, but how about not going for the Austrian for once? Like, how about going for something else? Like, something a bit more interesting in the obscure department, which hasn't so far been brought up in every single communist game, so many other World War II RTS game, because again, that one stands out. I mean, again, there's so many other things they could go for. Similarly, rather than going for the the weird 251-17 flak after we know off, which again, so that's sliding down sides, how about just going for the flak drilling, which was overall, more common throughout the war. Did happen a bit later, but still within the period they sort of decided to add in the flak half track they developed version again, which was sort of actually technically a workshop version for the Luftwaffe Hermann Göring Fallschirmpanzer Division, which fought in Italy, at least back when they got it. They could have just gone for the flak drilling, they could have gone for more common variants. So again, they could have just gone for some sort of variation of a flak track. I mean, I think half tracks are the more unarmored ones with flak drillings on them. I mean, there's a lot there they could have gone for, but didn't. And again, I do feel that occasionally that ends up being a bit of a shame. I mean, it does, just risk, a bit of sort of, shall we say, fatigue in that department, but also, just large and sort of balance better stuff. Like, again, giving the Germans perhaps a more powerful flak half track, but, not quite as armored. So again, they have to be more careful with it. Could be one way of doing it, instead of just giving the flak panzer Austrian, which, turns out to be so far not that good due to being nerfed and whatnot. So, I mean, there's sort of, more room for that, I think, there, but just, more cleverly choosing units, but also just choosing ones perhaps just haven't seen so much usage. I mean, there's plenty of room there. I mean, hell, if they summon up North Africa, there's even like cars, jeeps, where they put 2 centimeter flags on them. That could be pretty interesting as well. Or just martyrs. Could also just be in a way of sort of bringing in stuff there. The Hummel, again, rather than just going for the big, fat, useless elephant, they could have gone for the Hummel, which again would have been much easier to balance. I mean, again, was a much more common heavy tank destroyer throughout the German army. Hell, even one knocked out a Pershing tank in a late war. So, I mean, why didn't they go for that one instead of going for the elephant or the Jagdtiger? I mean, that's sort of, again, the dark backside, really big backside, I think, also just, having to go for these just, Wunderwaffen, these high-profile stuff that ends up being junk, is it usually just ends up overshadowing a lot of sort of equipment that actually saw more usage and actually just performed better, and it's still, pretty cool. So, that's also the sort of stuff I want to see. And again, if I have to go for obscure stuff, how about the German version of the Katyusha? Because they actually grabbed Katyusha rockets, copied them, and added them to their own rocket trucks. Well, there was something that actually used in Normandy. There was like, a lot of equipment they could have used from Normandy. Well, for example, comes from set Normandy, they could have used there instead of just all this stuff. Like the 21st Panzer Division had a huge slew of just, new equipment that could have been pretty cool to use, but which again, they never quite gotten around to. So in that regard, it just ends up feeling as a shame when they just have to go for these, Wunderwaffen and just ignore everything else in the process. Because again, there's a lot of cool equipment that just sort of is lying about there, which could see usage. To be honest, you could even find some of that amongst the Allies. Again, if you sort of go for Italy, I mean, there's like the half track which they used as a tank destroyer, which basically an anti-tank gun mounted on the back would just sort of fire over the cabin. That could be pretty interesting. For example, So I mean, there's a lot of equipment there which I think they should sort of be more interested in looking into. And again, it doesn't have to be like obscure stuff. Again, there's a lot there just common stuff which for sort of reason just has never seen any usage. Again, like the Nashorn or the 251 mortar half track, just a lot of 251 variants never really for some reason got added. The one with the 75mm cannon, a bit like the Stugi, just more easy to balance around, I imagine. Or the one with the Pack 40, a tank destroyer version. That's like the other versions of the 234 Macar, not just the Puma they could go for. Again, the one with the cannon, the one with the Pack 40. Like again, well, again, there's some overlap there. I mean, obviously, they don't have to go for it right away, but again, if they sort of want to create different armies, they could sort of try and balance one around half tanks and another around armored cars, maybe sort of more reconnaissance style faction. I mean, that way they could also create this factions more easily, rather than just having all right, how do we stuff a Jagdtiger, Sturmtiger, and all the other stuff into one faction and still make it somehow cohesive? Turns out they can't. Instead of just, well, how about we just, try and create a faction, then look for the units that would sort of fit in with it most, and then take it from there. In which case, they probably could have worked it out like a bit like the Panzer Elite, from Companies 1, not fully successful, but at least, had a theme of 250 half tracks and some of all of their variations. Though, again, they could have done the cannon variant, for example, stuff like that. So, I mean, just by, looking at commonly used stuff, but not necessarily, glamorous stuff, they could still, do a lot rather than just having to insist on elephants, Jagdtigers, and all that. How about, the Vesper, the Nashorn, the Guerrilla self-propelled artillery, which is sort of more close support there, used for panzer divisions, provide more mobile artillery support on the move. That could have been an amazing choice as well. Rather than the Stukas first, which they end up rather botching because it has to find a straight line, which is not really how rockets worked back then. They were not known for being accurate, in fact known for the opposite and just saturating an area. So I mean, there's a lot there they could, I think, done a lot better. Obviously, and again, I do think that's where they sort of had again just a greater chance of improving stuff is just by going for, well, the bread and butter, the less obscure stuff. Well, not necessarily less obscure, it's just the less high-profile stuff. I mean, it doesn't have to be bad because it's obscure. I mean, there can be some cool things there, but like when they tend to go for it, tends to be these over-designed, not easy to work with units in terms of game balance, and that I think causes problems in a sense, to put it mildly. And similarly, why go for the KV-85? I mean, you could KV-8. I mean, when you could go for the KV-85, a bit more easy to balance again when you don't have a heavy flamethrower tank to deal with. So I mean, there's a lot, I think, there room again for sort of I think some thought from Relic and just trying to make things overall more fun for everyone. Again, just giving access to just larger palette of units. Again, that's sort of are more functional and also more importantly easier to balance. Which again, is I think sort of well, so particularly the uppermost run into an issue because a lot of the units are just these really clunky units like the Sturmtiger, the Jagdtiger, and so on, just not particularly well. In that regard, the Panzer Elite had a lot more going for it because again it did sort of stick to somehow less glamorous stuff, but still on the other end more easily balanced. So I think there are some lessons there to be had for Companies 3. So there you go. Hope you agree with this video. Hopefully have some other again sort of commonly used equipment that just for some reason never saw usage from Relic for whatever reason. It's listed off in the comments. This is Imperial Lane signing off, and see you another time for another video. Cheers.